Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. Finally, if you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide, available on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Most homeowners don't have the time or expertise to properly take care of their home, which causes costly issues to arise. That's where Kira Home Maintenance comes in. We're a full-service, routine maintenance company that was developed by a certified home inspector. Each quarter, we service our clients' homes following manufacturer's recommendations to properly maintain all the necessary appliances. We provide the materials and expertise to prolong the life of your property, creating a healthy and efficient environment for your family. From top to bottom, we'll maintain and service your home. To get started, we have a property inspection to determine what needs to be maintained, and a maintenance plan is created based on your preferences. From refrigerator coils to filters, vents, and drains, we do it all, and we do it well. Contact us today for your free routine maintenance inspection, and never worry about your maintenance again.
Mona Shaw on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Mona. How are you? Mona, see, I already screwed it up. I said Shaw. What am I doing? Let's try that again.
Okay.
Mona Shum on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Mona. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Steve.
Nice to meet you. I appreciate you getting this scheduled. I'm interested and curious to get into this because I will be perfectly honest. I did not know what an industrial hygienist was.
Most people don't.
Right. How in the hell did you even come up with that as something you wanted to focus on I guess we'll get into it. But I'm just like, man, I didn't even know that was a thing. I don't know.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
But
Happy to bring you through my journey.
yeah. Let's talk about it. First of all, tell us about you, the person, the human being, and start, family, early life, parents, siblings. Give us some background.
Sure. So I'm a third child of Chinese immigrants, actually. So they came to Canada after the head tax was abolished. So I don't know if you know about it, but in Canada, we had this head tax on Chinese people.
Really?
Before the 60s. And so it was quite a lot of money. People couldn't afford to then immigrate here because they had to pay this tax. So after it was abolished, my parents decided to embark in this new adventure, and they came to Canada. So my two siblings were actually born in Hong Kong, and I was born here. So yeah, there were 5 of us growing up.
I see. Are you folks still alive? Still with us?
One of them, my mom is. My father's passed away.
Okay. Is your mom still in Canada?
She is. She actually lives with us.
Oh, she does. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
why Canada? Why Canada instead of the U.S.? Just curious. Any for a
I think it was
job or?
probably easier at the time, just because the head tax was abolished, and it was just easier to immigrate. I think I'm not quite sure actually. I would assume that's why.
I see. And where do you live? British Columbia, Vancouver.
Vancouver, BC. That's right.
All right. Very good. I guess you like snow.
Well, it normally doesn't snow that much here, but it's dumped a lot of snow overnight, and it's still snowing outside.
Okay, very good. So you grew up there, high school, college, you've lived there your whole life.
Actually, no. So I went away for college for a bit to Montreal.
Okay.
And then I also worked in the United States and California for 10 years out in San Francisco. So
Wow, now that was a change going to San Francisco from up there. I mean, wow, right? Like, holy
yes,
cow.
yes, I've lived in Edmonton, Alberta as well, which is quite cold. And so you definitely need to like snow if you want to live there. So I've lived in very cold climates, and then we moved to actually LA first, lived there for a little bit, and then San Francisco. So went from Edmonton to California, which was quite a lovely change, actually.
Right. But then you went back to Canada. Did you go back for a job or did you went back for family?
I went back for family. We had sort of parents that were ailing health, so
Okay.
we came back.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And you said so there's a partner or a spouse or something in here.
Yes, I'm married, and I have 2 children of my own as well. So I had them actually in the States, so they're both American and Canadian.
I see. How old are your kids?
So almost 19 and 16.
Gotcha. Well, teenagers. Okay. You've
Yes.
been, all right. That's always
We could have a
fun,
whole
isn't it?
podcast about that, but I
A
won't.
whole podcast. Yes. Are they still both at home?
Actually, one of them's away at college. She's in the UK right now. So
Interesting that she picked the UK after all of your experience with the US and Canada. Why did she go overseas?
she wanted I think she wanted to pick the farthest location actually from us, to be honest. We were like we were going through the list and we are like, well, there's a lot of US schools. She applied to a lot of US schools because she is American as well. She didn't want to apply to any Canadian schools because she wanted to sort of get away and have that experience. So she ended up with the UK just because it had a really good program, and I think she wanted that international experience, like just abroad. Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. What's your husband do?
He's a graphic designer. He owns his own company as well. Mhm.
I see. Okay. Very good. Totally different from what you're doing, obviously.
Totally different, totally different. But we intersect because we need a website and things like that. So we do
So
courses.
he's got the artistic brain
Exactly.
in the family. I see.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Now, were you always a good kid, straight A student, when you were young? I mean, what's your story there when in high school and college? Were you straight and narrow? Did you venture off and have any fun? What's the story, Mona?
Well, I was a pretty good student, I'd say. I think my mother instilled in me like a need for a good education because we did come from sort of like uh, impoverished background, I think. So she was really on me about getting good grades and working hard so that we could actually make a living. So I did actually do fairly well in school and through university as well.
Okay. All right. How'd you meet your husband?
In high school, actually.
High school sweethearts, huh?
Yeah,
Did you go
yeah.
to McGill together?
He went to another university in Montreal, Concordia,
Okay.
but we went together. Yeah, we traveled all over together.
Oh, wow. Been together
Yeah,
since high school, huh? Wow,
yeah,
cool. All right.
yeah.
That's a cool story. How in the world? Well, I guess you started out, your major was microbiology. What were you thinking? Like, did you have a plan? Did you know what you wanted to do? What was the plan?
Sure. I thought I was going to be like a research scientist, like in a
Oh,
lab doing work,
like
figuring
researching
out.
what though? Any particular?
Well, I was going to cure some diseases, I think that's what I was hoping to do.
Okay. All right.
So I was in my undergrad, I actually got that experience where I was doing my honors thesis at McGill, and I was looking at Alzheimer's disease and trying to figure out, why people get Alzheimer's disease and,
I
you
see.
know, try to figure out a solution. And so
What now, is there a tie into family on that? Did your dad suffer from that or something, or what was the tie in there?
no, I just was I was interested in the field.
Okay.
I was at McGill. This came up as a opportunity for me to work with one of the professors there. So I said,
Okay.
okay, I'd like to really try this. And so I
Okay.
did it for about a year in my last year of school. And then I realized I didn't like actually doing um, research, like lab research. I realized like after all that schooling, I was like, I better rethink what I want to do as a career because I found it a little lonely. You're in the lab, late
Okay.
nights
Okay.
running gels and things like that and
Yeah.
running experiments. You're with your mice, it was a little lonely and I felt like I wasn't really giving all my best, so I wanted
And
to change
you enjoyed
careers.
being around people. You had you liked talking to people.
I do. I like learning about what people do. I like talking to people. So
Okay.
after a
Okay.
while, I actually took a year off and traveled a bit, etc., and got some work and just kind of tried to
Okay.
figure out my situation. I guess people call that a gap year now. We just called it sort of not knowing what we were doing at the time. So
Did you like hitchhike around with a backpack and just like stay in random places? Did you do the whole thing?
yeah, I went through Europe in the backpack and took trains.
Okay.
I didn't hitchhike because my mother would have killed me, but I took trains all over, backpacked went to hostel for like the whole summer. And
Cool.
then I kind of tried to figure out what I was going to do. And then I figured out this strange career.
How? What happened? What was the pivot point right there? Did something happen that steers you this way?
Yeah, so I was looking around at the University of British Columbia, just kind of looking at different programs, and I was at the Faculty of Medicine and just kind of checking out epidemiology, which is the study of human populations. And I
Okay.
was like, okay, maybe, but it was very heavily statistical. You needed to do a lot of
Yeah.
stats in it.
Okay.
And so I was in that department and I was walking outside. And if you know Vancouver at all, it's like Seattle, it rains all the time. So it was pouring rain.
Okay.
But just like, I don't know, call it serendipity or something, I happened to look down on the ground and I found a pamphlet. And it was wet, soggy, wet. And for some reason though, something about it caught my eye and I picked it up and it was this thing called industrial hygiene. What is industrial hygiene? I was like, what is industrial hygiene? And it ticked off all the points that I wanted to do in my career. So it said, do you like, people? Do you like being in the field? Do you like doing some lab work? Do you like doing, all the things that I really kind of that resonated with me. So I I called them, and it was such a new program at the time. It was brand new that I actually talked to the professors and went to their offices and sat down with them and said, "So tell me about this program. What is it?" And it was completely new at the time at UBC. This was in the early 90s, and so I got to actually talk to them about what they did and what I could possibly do in this area, and it really intrigued me. And so then I applied and I got in. So
I'm sure you've thought back and said to yourself, man, if I had not looked down and saw that, if I had not been walking down that street and looked down and saw that pamphlet, who knows where my
right,
life would have gone.
it's definitely that's why I do remember that it was such a turning point in my life. And normally I wouldn't pick up garbage off the floor or off the ground. Like that's not a thing I normally do. But I don't know. Yeah, if you believe in sort of that,
I
serendipity or
do.
whatever.
I do. Call me weird, call me crazy, but yeah,
Yeah,
life is, I mean, if you look back, especially as you get older, you look back and you think to yourself, well, if I hadn't went dancing at that country bar in Austin, Texas, that one night when my future
right.
wife also happened to go,
Yes.
I, I mean, you see all these little things, right? These little
Right.
doorways, left, right, you
Yeah.
turn here, this,
Yep.
I mean,
All
this
those
is how,
branches that could have your life would be totally different right now. Same with me. My parents never immigrated here. Let's say they were quite
yeah,
happy in Hong Kong actually at the time, but they had this adventurous spirit. My dad wanted land. He wanted to have opportunity. So
cool.
he came and it was hard on them. It was really hard on them. But if they
Yeah,
hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here. I don't know what I would be doing right now. I wouldn't
yep,
have the kids I have, anything,
yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did your grandparents ever come over or they stayed in China?
They did come over when I was
Oh,
little. Yeah, it was
really?
wonderful
Ah,
because we
cool.
did at the time have
Yeah.
have a piece of land, and they were so excited to be able to walk around it like it was like a garden to them or like a park.
Uh,
So it was really exciting for them to come over here, and I got to know them quite well over a summer. They stayed for quite a long time.
you speak Mandarin?
I speak Cantonese actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm learning Mandarin. I'm learning.
Okay. And do you still have, I'm assuming you have family overseas in China still.
Yes, yes, we still have in China, mainland China, as well as Hong Kong. So we still have quite a bit of family out there. They've also moved around. We have people all over the world now, Australia and other
Okay.
places. Mhm.
We'll get back to the industrial hygienist, but I want to ask you this. Because you mentioned the population thing. Is it true the stats and the stories I hear about China's population is apparently they're on a trajectory to be what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes,
A lot less
their
populated.
population.
Is that true?
I've
I
heard
don't know.
that. Yeah, I've heard that. And a while back they had that one child rule, but they've since abolished that. But I
Have
think
they?
a lot of people just aren't having children because it's expensive. It's, all of multitude of reasons. I've just been speaking to a number of people in China and they decided not to have any children. Yeah.
Understood. I've seen
Mhm.
people run a bunch of reports on it and showing where, if it keeps on this trend,
Yeah.
there'll be a
It's
lot
really
fewer people. I have no idea if any of
hmm
that's true. I just have seen various articles on it. Okay.
hmm
So you get into class, you go to school for this stuff, and
Yes.
now might be a good time. why don't you tell everybody what the heck an industrial hygienist is? Let's start there.
Sure, sure. An industrial hygienist actually looks at exposures in the workplace. And so we look at chemical and biological, physical exposures like noise and radiation. And we actually try to assess how much exposure workers are getting, and then we try to control those exposures. So it's something that actually is cross-cutting through many industries. Just people haven't really heard of, not many people have heard of the field.
And I was just things like poisonous gas, the air,
Yes,
the dust, the lead, I don't know,
right.
asbestos. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah,
All
very
these.
good. Very good, Steve.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, so all of those things, it can be dust, gases, vapors from like maybe solvents people are using. So,
solvents. Okay.
you know, in mining and in oil and gas, you can see how there'd be lots of chemicals, possibly
Ah,
there'd be noise. There'd
yeah.
be, even in food manufacturing, we did some work on flour dust, because if you breathe in too much flour dust, you can get something called baker's asthma.
Uh,
So,
I didn't know
yeah,
there was
so
such a thing. Baker's asthma. How about that?
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people don't think of some of these biological or like you know, derived products as being possibly bad for you, because they think, oh, well, they're just natural, or I eat it or whatever it is. But if it's in the air in enough quantity, in enough quantity, it can actually cause some damage.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. So tell us about your company a little bit.
Sure. So Aura Health and Safety is based out of the Vancouver area. And we started back in 2016. There's 10 of us now, but it was really my partner, Levi Kimball, and myself that opened the company and started the company back then. And we do a lot of work in around the province, also in some of the territories in Canada here, and some additional provinces across Canada. We work in mining and the film industry. We work at the airport. We work for energy companies, etc. So we do a number of different types of work for people, including hazardous materials work, including exposure assessments, and like writing up plans for people to reduce their exposure.
It's aurahealthsafety.com is the website, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so is your business model so things like in the US, OSHA, I guess, I'm not an expert at this, has all these safety rules, right? All these things that
Right,
you're supposed to be following to keep the employees and the workers safe.
right.
Are you are you hired by government agencies to go in and audit companies, or do companies hire you to make sure they have all their stuff together so they don't get audited by the governments, or both?
It's the second one mostly. Companies will hire us so that they're in compliance with the regulation,
Okay,
and they don't want to get
find
inspection reports or fines or shut down.
or shut
Um,
down. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So they definitely want to remain compliant. And so a lot of them will reach out to us to do that. And we have a number of really sort of long-term contracts where people are being proactive, and they're just keeping up their programs and making sure that they're consistently remaining
Okay.
compliant. Mhm.
Who do you have certain segments or industries that you focus on, like mining, or do you have certain things you target, or you're industry agnostic? How does that work?
We do actually have some main industries, I'd say. Mining is one of them. The film
Okay.
industry is one of them. And
Why the film industry? That's a how the
yeah, it's very interesting how I got involved in film.
yeah, the film. How does that how
So
the I don't even yeah. What are you going
it's
to
fun.
make sure that you can make sure the stunt man doesn't drive off the cliff too far with the car? What do you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they do have some exposures on set as well, and also before and after. So they building sets, there's construction, there's sometimes
I
welding, there's sometimes gluing,
I,
spraying, sorts of
I see.
things that
Yeah.
happen. And then even when they strike down a set, there's all that activity as well.
Oh,
And people drive in and out forklifts and things like that, where there's combustion engines and whatnot that are in around people, etc. So there is a need for exposure assessment and control.
how
Also,
about that?
they tend to go into hazardous materials, or sorry, buildings with hazardous materials as well. Like they really like derelict buildings for a certain certain shoots and things like that.
I
And
see.
so they'll go in and
Interesting.
it'll be like moldy, it'll be, lead paint everywhere and asbestos
Oh.
insulation falling down, etc. So we go in there to try to assess and try to help them control those exposures beforehand.
Is this up in Canada or are you doing stuff in Hollywood?
We're mainly doing it here in Vancouver because really Vancouver is like the third largest center besides Hollywood and Georgia. I don't know if you knew that, but it's big for
I heard
filming.
something. I heard something about Georgia, but yeah, I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Have you met anybody famous yet? Who's the most famous person you've met?
Jeff Bridges.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, I
How
said
was
hello
he?
to him. I was
Yeah.
sort of starstruck. I don't think he remembers me, but I definitely remember him. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay, pretty
Yeah,
cool. So it's a little all over the place, though. I mean, you'll do anything. It doesn't matter what the industry is. It
yeah. I
really.
mean, we tend to focus on certain industries just because people have heard of us. So, like for instance, in mining and in film, as with anything, I think once you've established yourself in that sort of
Yeah, sure.
field, more
Yeah.
people will come to you from that field, right? So, and just to get back to how I started in
Oh yeah.
film,
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Got off track.
yeah. My sister is actually a filmmaker. She's a director and writer.
Oh.
And someone knew her, and then they were like, "Oh," and I heard her name is Mina Shum, and my name's Mona Shum. So, so I think the first time I ever got contacted by someone in film was because of that sort of relationship. And then after that, I completely have done, independent sort of work with them, and nothing to do with my sister. But it's just, I think that's how I originally got into
I
this field.
see. I see. I see.
Mhm.
Does she say, "Hey, I need a little piece of the action from any of the stuff you're doing
I take her to dinner, make her dinner.
there?" That's pretty funny. You don't happen to recognize a company, I think they're headquartered in Australia, called Tees Mining.
Tease mining. No, I haven't heard of
Oh,
tease.
okay. We did some recruiting and staffing for them. They're a big
Oh,
mining outfit,
nice.
but yeah, I can't imagine the safety of some of these giant mines. I mean,
Oh, oh,
that's
yes. We're doing something with it's a exploration right now stage, but for uranium mining. So you can imagine with
mm,
uranium mining, the health and safety
mm,
aspects of that
yes,
and the
yes.
exposure aspects of that. So yeah.
Mm, wow. You know what you need to do as soon as we go to Mars, you need to be the first company to be like, hey, I'll handle the safety audits. We'll fly up there. I'll send my people up there with Elon Musk on the first ship to make sure
There you
everybody's
go.
safe.
There you go. As long as it doesn't
Yeah.
take 80 years to get there or something like that.
uh, so really, I guess in a way, you save lives, right? I'm sure you've thought of it like that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
sure hope we are doing that. That's the intent. And like even when
Good.
I was in microbiology, remember I said I wanted to cure diseases?
Yeah.
Originally, I was in
Yeah.
microbiology. I
Yeah.
always wanted to do something like that. Um, to help cure diseases. We're not curing them, we're preventing them, hopefully.
Yep. Yep. Do you get in situations where you do your analysis, you do your report, you go into the executive office and you're like, okay, got my report. Here's all the areas you're at risk. And then you list off the 8 areas that they're at risk, and then you tell them what they need to do to fix it. And then of course, they're looking at the expense to fix those 8 areas, and they're like, okay, Mona, thank you, but I don't know, that's $50,000 worth of work.
Yes,
Yeah, thanks a lot for the audit, but we're just gonna take a chance. I mean, I'm sure these conversations happen.
yes, definitely. Yes. We have that all the time where we provide them with a whole bunch of recommendations and they're like, okay, thank you. However, what we try to do in order to alleviate some of that, we give them sort of recommendations that are low-hanging fruit. So something they could do right now that's
Okay.
fairly inexpensive that they can do to right away control some of their exposures. And then we also give them sort of future state and what they can do. And maybe, they can't upgrade
Good
their
idea.
ventilation system because it's going to be millions of dollars to do that. But in
Yeah.
the meantime, can you do something about your exposures right now to your employees, right?
Love that. I love
So,
that. That's a good approach. I guess, yeah, in some cases they're like, well, I guess if something happens, we'll just shut down the business, file bankruptcy, but I don't have the money to fix that $2 million thing, right? Yeah, I'm sure that happens
it
sometimes.
does. It does happen.
Yeah. Do you have some sort of legal requirement to report them to OSHA or whatever if you found something that they don't fix? How does that work? Like, how do you get if you get in a place where you know they're putting people at risk and they're like, yeah, we ain't gonna fix it. What do you do?
We can, if they don't fix it. There's also an anonymous line you can call. Not gonna say whether I've used that or not. But there is a way you could do it. What we do try to do is really give them that low-hanging fruit first.
Yeah.
So sure that
Yeah.
they do something, because a lot of times, like I said, if we work for some companies that are large, they want to stay in the good graces of the regulators. They will
Sure.
do that, right?
Yeah, sure. The large, well, yeah, and quite frankly, it's easier for the large ones to do it because they have cash flow. I mean, your small
Right.
to medium, your small to medium sized businesses that are, just trying to make payroll every month, they're like,
Right.
oh shit, yeah.
Right. So the small companies usually come to us because there's already been an inspection report from the regulator. Yeah, so they have to do something.
I
So
see.
we also give them the choice, the low-hanging fruit as well. And is that, going to comply with the regulator? And so
Oh,
they
well,
need to do
great point.
something anyways, normally.
Yeah, now see, now that makes sense to me. Yeah, the small companies are calling you because they're getting audited or they're about to get audited or they got audited.
Yeah, got
They're not calling you because they're dying to spend some extra money. They're calling you
Right.
because they have to.
Right. And usually the small companies don't even know that there is an exposure risk.
Right.
Like
Right.
they don't really recognize it. So that's why they haven't. Like most small companies, like I own a small company and I have my employees, best interests at heart. I think most mom and pop shops do. They just don't
Yeah.
really recognize sometimes that,
Sure.
oh,
Yeah.
that silica is a hazard, concrete grinding or something like that is a hazard.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
recognize it, or risk actually. So they don't really recognize it until they get audited.
Sure.
And then they need to do something about it.
Yes. Now I could see a situation where you present your arguments to the client and people are in danger and they don't want to fix it. And I would be tempted to be like, look, John, you are putting people at risk. If you don't fix this, you at least need to tell them the dangerous situation. They just need to let the associates know, like they give them a choice to know and accept working in this risky situation versus hiding it from the employees. I mean, if that's kind of worst case scenario is if they know there's something wrong and they don't tell the employees, like that's not good, right?
Yeah, we have a bunch of regulation around that. So workers have a right to know, right? So
Okay.
definitely they need to be aware of the hazards and risks in their workplace. And if they're
Yeah.
not, the company could be
Yeah.
fined. Mhm.
Yeah. Not good.
Mhm.
What percentage of companies, like if you just lined up 100 companies and you did your thing, did your audit or whatever, your study or your analysis, I don't know what word you use to perform your thing.
Yeah, evaluation is good too.
Evaluation. Thank you. Let's say you line up 100 companies and you do your evaluation. What percentage of companies have something they need to fix? 90?
Oh, almost everyone.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I would guess
Yeah,
so. I would guess
almost
there's
everyone.
yeah. Rarely do you do your evaluation and it comes back completely clean score, right?
I mean, sometimes when we do indoor air quality work as well, where people complain about like an office environment or something like that, where they're like getting headaches and things like that. Sometimes there we do a bunch of work and studying and we don't find anything.
I see.
So that happens oftentimes. But if you're talking about an industrial environment, we've been asked to come for some reason or to do an assessment. A lot of the times we at least find something. Maybe they're low on this particular chemical or hazard, but there's probably an improvement they can do somewhere.
Is Canada much like the US? I mean, I don't even know. I should know this. Is the majority of the commerce made up of small business owners for the most part?
Yes, we have a lot of small business owners, I'd say. I don't know the percentage or whatever, but I do know
more than half, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Probably way more than half.
I think so.
The problem, I would think, challenge, I guess is the word, would be is that, all of us small business owners, I mean, well, you're a small business owner too, right? I mean, it's not like we're all sitting on a giant pile of cash, right? Like, so when they see you, like they know they need you, they want to hire you. They're just trying to figure out how to pay for it. How
Right.
do you put them on a payment plan?
I haven't, but what we try to explain too is if they get fined, for instance, or if they get shut down,
Yeah,
they're actually going to be spending more money
that's true.
trying to deal with that. And I've
No doubt.
seen it. I've seen with the larger industry, the film industry, where something didn't happen, they didn't do what they needed to do, and then they got shut down for a week. And so
Yeah.
you're talking about all that revenue, all that
Yes.
that money just gone to
Mhm.
waste in a week's time. Whereas
Yeah.
if they had just taken a small fraction of that and done the proper exposure assessment and the controls, they could have saved all that time and money. So I try to put it in those terms for people
Yeah.
and just say, well, I mean, if you're just talking strictly business terms, of course we all want to make sure our employees are healthy because we rely on them and
Sure.
we also are good people, hopefully, and we want them to be
Right.
healthy and happy.
Yes.
But even from just a business perspective, you can kind of appeal to that part of it.
What's your business model? Do they pay you up front? Do they pay after? Do they pay per size of the building, per number of employees? How do you decide how to charge them? How does all that work?
Usually, for small businesses, if we've never worked with them before, we'll take some type of retainer up front, just
Okay.
because we've gotten burned in the past, as you
Oh,
can imagine.
t- trust me. Believe me, I run a recruiting firm for a living. So yeah, I rarely do I do any work without some cash in the bank up front. I've
Yeah.
been burned way too many times. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry to
so
beat you
so
to the punch.
new clients, we do that, normally small clients. For really our regular larger clients that are monthly, we do just time and materials and we'll just do every month. So that works out quite well. And sometimes we'll do work per job. So we'll be asked to do a particular job over a few days, and then we estimate how much it's going to be. We just do a lump sum, but that's usually paid at the end as well if they're like a larger
Okay.
reputable firm. Yeah.
What percentage of your clients are one-time deals versus recurring clients?
Oh, I'd say probably like maybe 20% are one-time deals, and then 80% are recurring.
Oh, I like your business model. I want to invest already. Hey,
Yeah.
if you can get 80% of your revenue to be recurring, nice job, Mona.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we're very lucky, knock on wood.
Yeah. Woo, man. Okay, that's good. That's great. Great job. So cash flow you're not, this is not you're like EBITDA positive, cash flow positive, building a business, hiring employees. You're good to go. You're you're just cruising right along at this point from a business perspective.
Yeah, I think my mother always told me to save. I'm bringing everything back to my mother because she taught me everything I know, really. Um, so we're always pretty good about cash flow. We always have enough in the bank to be able
Good.
to pay our expenses and
Good.
all that. I always like to tuck things away and make sure that we have
Yes,
enough for a
please.
rainy day. And I mean, during the
Yeah,
pandemic, it was a perfect example of making sure that we had that little bit of savings to be able to function. So
no doubt. Yeah, no
uh,
doubt. Are you raising cash or you guys are just, you bootstrapped it yourself and you're good to go for now? Well, it's two-part question. Did you
sure.
raise any cash in the beginning? Have you ever raised cash? Are you raising cash now? What's the status there?
We haven't really. We haven't done that. Most of it's just come from our initial pot of money. We didn't have to have that much to start off with, actually. I think
Okay.
I started out with 10 grand
Okay.
of my own money and sort of just built the business from there.
You and
But
your co-founder,
yes,
are still the 100% owners then? You guys,
yes,
no,
yes.
nobody else on the cap table?
Nope, not
How about that?
yet.
Are you interested in taking on cash?
Potentially. We're trying to get into the sort of digital arena right now. So we have actually gotten some grants and things like that from the government to get
Oh,
into the digital
what do you mean
um,
digital? What do you mean digital arena? I don't
digital tech.
understand.
So we're trying to get into online courses and sort of like online tools that people
Oh,
can
I see.
utilize to do risk
Oh,
assessment and things like that.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
So right now, a lot of our work is manual. We go out there and we, take notes, we evaluate, we write reports, and it's all very manually done.
oh,
We wanted to get into maybe some tools that industrial hygienists could use themselves with apps and with forms and with databases and things like that. But then also for our courses, we want to be able to do online courses to teach people about industrial hygiene sampling and things like that, because a lot of people want to get into this field. They don't know anything about it. But actually, if you know, you have any kind of sort of desire to be in the field and work with people and have some ability to follow instructions, you can do things like hang a pump and take some samples for industrial hygienists like ourselves. So we're trying to train people out there because I think there is an appetite for it, and people want to stay in their communities. For instance, like a lot of the mines and a lot of these oil and gas companies, et cetera, are sort of in more remote areas, et cetera, right? So you remember if I said there aren't that many industrial hygienists in really North America. So we
how
can't
many are there
service all
in
of them.
North America? Like how many other, yeah.
You know, I haven't done the count, but just looking at the membership for the American Industrial Hygiene Association, which most of us are part of, there's about 10 grand, I'd say, something like that.
10,000. Now you're talking all of North America.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
It is
I'd
that,
have
are
to
they,
get the real numbers from AIHA, but it's not much more than that, I don't think.
and are they all smaller companies like yours, or are there 2 or 3 giant players in this field?
Uh, you know what? There's industrial hygiene consultants out there in large companies, but they're really the same size, about 10 to 15, 20 people within a larger company. So maybe the larger company does engineering services or like
I see.
environmental services,
I
but the
see.
hygiene groups are usually pretty small.
But the hygiene groups that work for these larger companies are more expensive than you guys, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yes. And a lot of the hygienists also don't work in consulting. They work in at the regulator. They work in healthcare. They work in actually some of the industries themselves, large companies. Like I used to work for an oil and
Okay.
gas
Okay.
company, and I was the industrial hygienist for the
I
corporation.
see. I see.
So a lot of them hire them, people are hired all over the place to service those different needs, right? So you can imagine there's not that many people in consulting that can go to the north, be there every week and do that work. So what we're trying to do and get into the space of teaching people how to do some of the sampling in this work so they could work with occupational hygienists like ourselves that set up the strategy of how to do it and all that, but they could be the people going out there and doing that work, still kind of live in and play in their communities as well while getting gainful employment. So that's an idea that I've been starting and I've wanted to get into for quite a while. And we're hoping to set up some kind of like an associate degree program.
You're trying to have a SaaS arm of your business, right? Some sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah, exactly.
Do you have a coder? Do you have some programmers and coders on your team, or you're roping some of that in, or how
Yeah.
you doing that?
Well, like I said, my husband owns another company. It's a graphic design marketing firm.
Right.
So we've been partnering with them and their developers. So they've been helping us with
Good idea. I see.
the online courses and like the LMS, the learning management system, all of those things. And they've been helping us get prepared to really start to build these online services.
Yeah. Hey, good idea. Love the fact that you're diversifying your revenue portfolio arms. Always a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Yeah.
like that. By the way, is your husband nervous at all? I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here. It's looking at our time. Is your husband nervous at all being a graphic design with this whole AI and what all what all the ChatGPT can do with graphic design? I mean, is he nervous about this stuff?
Yes, I think so. But he's also embracing it. So he knows that there's nothing he can do about this. It's
Yeah,
a
you can't
train
stop
that's
it. Right? You
left
can't
the
stop it.
station.
Yeah.
So he's trying to utilize it to make them more efficient in what they do.
Okay.
I've been looking at AI too and seeing what kind of aspects we can use for industrial hygiene.
Sure.
We're very far behind in all our sort of technology. We've been catching up for decades. We're not caught up. So
You mean industrial hygienists in general? Is that field, or you mean, what do you mean? Yeah,
the
I see.
field and the equipment we use, et cetera, it's
I see.
very, very, I mean, most of the standardized equipment that we use is what I used 30 years ago. It's still
I
the same
see.
equipment. Actually, some of it is exactly the same equipment, just with new batteries in them, right? But essentially, you know, we need to be embracing some newer technologies, some more direct reading instruments and things like that. But because our regulator and OSHA included, they don't really accept these other types of sampling methods. They want that gold standard with the old pump and the cassette or the tube on your lapel, right? And actually sucking air into that cassette or something. So, and that's great. It's a gold standard. You have to get that sample analyzed in a laboratory. But can we start to supplement with some newer technologies, more real-time technologies and things like
Can you invest in a little robot to go inside the building with the tube and get the air and come back out so you don't have
that?
to?
Yeah, exactly. Those two would actually, that'd be wonderful too. We could do that.
You know, by the way, embrace is the key word you mentioned a couple of times. I have friends in the recruiting and staffing world that are what I would call fighting against the whole AI and, you know, trying to pretend like it's not there. And, you know, they're asleep at the wheel. I'm telling them, I'm like, you cannot stop this train. It is not going anywhere. If I highly advise you to embrace it and figure out how to make it, how to help it make you stronger. Because if you think you're going to, you're going to be left behind.
Right, definitely. And I've seen it so many times. Like, I remember I had a client who was a manufacturer of flip phones back in the day. And they said, oh, people only want to use their phones for phoning people and maybe an SMS, a short message every once in a while. And so they did not embrace the smartphone idea. And they're gone. I'm not going to say who they are, but they were big. They were a huge player in the industry. And then they're just, I don't hear about them anymore.
Did you see that? You didn't happen to watch the latest movie, Blackberry, the little story about
Oh,
Blackberry?
I heard of it. I want to watch it. I haven't seen it yet.
Same thing. They just put the, you know, Steve Jobs was moving on with different types of phones, and BlackBerry was like, "Oh no, 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 no! People are always gonna people are always gonna want keyboards on their phones." Okay, yeah, you better, you got to embrace it. I think that's smart of you to make sure you're watching it close to see how it can help you. See how it can help you, you know, make you stronger and faster. That's what we do. I'm doing, you know, if it can help me be a better recruiter and move faster and more efficient for my client, I'm all for it.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm all for it. So are you taking on more business? I mean, are you taking phone calls? Are we taking more clients?
Definitely. I can, we can always take on more. We're actually hiring right now too. So trying to shore up a little bit for more work.
As soon as you can't do it on your own, you got to call the best recruiting firm on the planet, Riderflex, and we will help you find talent as soon as you're under the gun.
Thanks.
OraHealthSafety.com, right?
Correct.
Okay. And is there any other websites or anything else? Do you want to, are you a big LinkedIn user? Do you want people to reach out to you on LinkedIn? Mona Shum or, okay.
Yeah. Mona Shum on LinkedIn. They can definitely reach out to me there. The website's good just to understand what we do. And they can also reach out to us there too. We have a form that they can fill out.
Okay. And by the way, on LinkedIn, if you find more than one Mona Shum, it's Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada is how she's listed on LinkedIn if you want to be able to find her easily. Hey, you're making money. You got 10 people, you're hiring, you're cash flow positive, your business is growing, you have 80% recurring revenue. You haven't had to take on any cash or give up any equity to anybody else. I mean, hey, that's pretty good. Nice job.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to knock on wood again because I'm a little superstitious about these things. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mona. Thank you for sharing your story on the Riderflex podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It was nice meeting you.